Welcome, rocket scientists, TMAT engineers, and fabulous blinged out marshals, to the 193rd episode of an Unearthly Podcast, streaming live on the 1st of February 2017, and featuring The Seeds of Death by Brian Hales, starring Patrick Troutman as the Doctor, Fraser Hines as Jamie, and Wendy Padbury as Zoe. I am Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black, and with me are Mad Matt Winchell.
Ha-ha, dangly parts.
Randy Ronson McCulloch.
I'll just say phrasing.
Aaron Romeo Moon Burke.
I crave human flesh.
Tim the Enchanter Sheridan.
Everything is going to be okay.
And Miles Reed Lobato.
Seeds of Death. I thought we were watching Seeds of Doom.
I hope you're not serious there.
I'm not serious.
He made enough comments on Facebook. If anything, he might have watched both, but he clearly watched this one.
Yes.
I will admit, it's easy to get the two confused because they're both the seeds of X, and the X starts with a D in both places.
Seeds of D. That's the
porno
parody.
smooth.
In fact,
Yes.
I actually own the Seeds of Death because I ordered it off of Amazon thinking it was the Seeds of Doom.
But did you order the porno parody?
No. I own
No,
Doctor
that would have
porn.
Daleks in a totally different title.
I own no Doctor Who porn. I'm very proud to state that.
Neither do I. I just happen to know
See, and
through people
now
who are.
that's what I should have gotten you for Christmas.
I just happen to know through people who do review things that kind of fall into those lines that there are things that you won't unsee.
Oh God, you guys are like my friends at my first anime convention. Hey, Randy's like the world's biggest Ranma fan. We should buy him these Ranma hentai dojins just to freak out his brain.
It worked, didn't it?
No, they never actually bought them for me.
Aw.
Aww.
But they were
Well, that
they were
starts a good
certainly
turn.
teasing me about it. I think by this point I've become immune.
You never know until you try it.
Anyway, let's move on to the news because it's been a very, very, very big news week, and not all of it's good.
Yeah.
Yes, someone's pretty sad.
Yep. So, first of all, let's move on to birthdays. And our first birthday, dating from the 26th of January, is the birthday of Mal Young, BBC controller of continuing drama series from 1997 to 2004, and he turned 60. Now, some of you are wondering, why are we celebrating the birthday of this yabo? Well, back when Julie Gardner first was getting ready to bring Doctor Who back, before she could turn to Russell T Davies and ask him to produce, she first has to go to this yabo and say, I'd like to bring Doctor Who back as a series. And if he had said, no, that's a stupid idea, that's not going to happen, we would not have Doctor Who now. But instead he said, that's a brilliant idea, make it happen. And in fact, he was an executive producer for the first series. So without him, we wouldn't have Modern Who. So thank you, Mal Young. Happy birthday.
Yay.
Indeed.
Many happy returns.
Even though I'm sure there are some classic fans that are cursing him as a result, but we're not among them.
No.
No. I'll admit, Series 5, 6, and 7 weren't the greatest things ever produced by
But
Doctor
they
Who.
weren't his fault.
No. Then he also gave us Series 1, 2, 3, and 4, which we more or less love. And 8, 9, and 10 haven't been that bad either. Well, we don't know about 10 yet, but we're pretty sure.
We're crossing our fingers and hoping that at least 10 will follow suit.
Going on to the 29th of January, we have Katrin Stewart, who plays Jenny of the Paternoster Gang, turned 29. What is she doing currently? Because
I cannot believe she's only 29. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, Moffat liked to hire young people, apparently. Typing Jenny Flint in YouTube comes up with that, and it doesn't give me any more of. She doesn't actually have her own wiki page, which I guess you consider her a minor character of the Paternoster Gang. Still,
She's a quiet one, but she's not by any means any lesser of a character out of the three.
She's if anything the straight man of the trio.
Yeah.
So
I was doing that to get to Katrin Stewart's page because Bill kind of posted Jenny Flint's name in the middle of it, meaning I couldn't copy and paste. Thank you, Bill. She's apparently doing Stella on television and just came back to it this year. She was in a movie, apparently a Welsh language film last year. I am not going to try to pronounce it. So
it is Welsh.
And she's been doing some stage productions, most recently Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
Oh. Little Tennessee Williams.
Mm-hmm. So she's still active. And you did this for everybody, didn't you, Bill?
Yes, he did.
yes.
Bill. Moving on to the 30th of January, we wish a happy birthday to Daphne Ashbrook, who you might remember as Grace Holloway from the 96 movie.
She was an interesting companion.
Well, mind you, her status as a companion is debatable. Because the qualifiers for a companion, as written by the fans, is that you, A, have to travel in the TARDIS, and B, have to appear in more than one serial.
It doesn't help that BBC doesn't have the rights to do anything but distribute her one story.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why when she and Yi Jitsu appeared in Big Finish, they were new characters.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Roberts did not appear as a new character. They just used Jeffrey Beavers.
Of course.
I can't tell if she is doing anything currently. She has released some memoirs, so it sounds like she might be semi-retired.
Sounds a bit early to be retired.
She is one of only two women to be credited in both Star Trek and Doctor Who, by the way. The other is Nana Visitor, who played Kira Nerys in Deep Space Nine and was in Torchwood Miracle Day.
Sorry.
Hey, it still gets to that, and she was in. She played the character Melora in Deep Space Nine. So there you go. So she's been in that, but I can't see any recent activity for her. But either way, 54. Happy birthday, Daphne. Next, we have a posthumous birthday on the same day to Peter Brakacki, that's Brakacki, developer for An Unearthly Child. He was the one that built the TARDIS interior set. If you remember Adventures in Space and Time, he's the one that Stahl was putting off doing it until she came directly to him, and he built the set in like 10 seconds and went, "There's your set," and pretty much became the brilliant early TARDIS set. He would have turned 91 today, except he died in 1980 at the age of 54.
Aw.
A little young, but
then again, he was probably working with asbestos all the day.
Probably. If you're a set designer, and if you're a set designer in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, that's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
So sadly, I would almost expect that of him.
Yep. He was, however, a very popular set designer at the times. I mean, he did a lot of BBC production work in that time. Doesn't
Actual
actually
picture of a
say
set.
what killed him, though.
Of course, they wouldn't know what killed him.
Hey, had to check. All right, moving on to today, February 1st. A happy birthday, posthumous again, to Elizabeth Sladen, who played Sarah Jane Smith. Would have been 71 if she hadn't died 5 years ago at 65. And we are still sad about that to this day.
Yep.
Pretty much.
And then we have Peter Sallis, who is only notable, would normally not be on this list, but we have included him because we reviewed his sole contribution to Doctor Who as Penley last week in The Ice Warriors, turned 96, and apparently is still kicking and probably retired.
He plays Wallace in the Wallace and Gromit films.
That's him.
He used to play Wallace in Wallace and Gromit. He was replaced, I think, 2 years ago.
Why did I always think Wallace was mute?
I don't know.
Gromit. That's mute.
He has retired from acting and not voiced since 2012.
So the original voice.
He was the original voice of Wallace, but it's been voiced by Ben Whitehead since 2011. And once in 2009, in fact, because I think the actor has had repeated health problems.
Don't blame him for it at 96.
Macular degeneration.
Yeah.
He has macular degeneration, and apparently it got so bad that in 2009 he couldn't do the role, and now he's not too well now. So we may be seeing him on our death list sometime soon. Finally,
welcome to the doom and gloom hour.
Our final birthday is Lisa Bowerman, who played Bernice Summerfield for Big Finish. We know it's her birthday, but we don't know how old she is because apparently that information has never been released publicly that we could find. And we looked.
Yep.
It looked high and low for her.
I stopped just short of tweeting her and asking her how old she was because I didn't think she'd take kindly to that.
Yeah, that would be
Don't ask a lady, Bill.
Oi, Benny! Oi, Benny, how old are you? How old are you, love?
If that was in person, that would get you slapped.
Yeah, come to think of it, I think Benny would slap me and I think Ellie would slap me. So what do I think the actress who plays both of them would do?
Punch you.
I think Benny would shoot you.
It's possible.
So you'd be lucky if you only get decked.
Not something you want to do. Either way,
I think Ellie might break a bottle over your head.
Keep up the good work for Big Finish.
Yeah, keep up the Big Finish because you've been doing good there.
We go from births to deaths, Aaron.
Yes, unfortunately, it's my sad duty to report that Sir, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Sir John Hurt. Randy, move your thing. Okay. Sir John Hurt has passed away at the age of 77 on January 25th.
Actually, that's not true. His death was reported on the 25th of January.
Oh.
He actually died on the 22nd.
On the 22nd, yep.
And we didn't find out about it until like the 27th, I think.
He was born the 22nd of January, 1940.
Yeah, because
he died on his birthday.
I was shocked. Didn't we report his birthday last week?
Yes, we reported his birthday last week. So while we were sitting here celebrating his happy birthday and wishing him many more, he was already dead.
That's depressing.
Yeah.
Everything I'm seeing says that he actually died on the 25th.
No,
I'm thinking you're mixing your wires, Randy.
There's a few saying the 27th because that's when it became public. But other than that, I'm not seeing anything earlier than the 25th.
I honestly read and saw that he was. It said the 22nd when I looked up his obituary.
Here, I'm gonna look up their wiki.
Anyway, John Hurt, he was known for playing, of course, the War Doctor and many, many, many other roles, including Ollivander from Harry Potter, the wizard who sold Harry his wand, if you remember.
One of his
also
best known earlier roles is the Elephant Man, which is what a lot of people mainly remember him from.
The Elephant
Alright.
Man, and he was also an alien, and checking his Wikipedia, it says 25th.
Yes,
Yes,
I know
he
when I'm
also
wrong,
played-
and I'm wrong.
Okay.
He
He also
played
played
Aragorn.
Caligula
That's right, he did play Caligula, didn't he?
on I, Claudius, yes.
And he played Aragorn, or the voice of Aragorn, in the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Yep, that's true too. He was also in Watership Down, as I believe he played Hazel, I think.
And also in Spaceballs played Oh No, Not Again. Guy.
Basically played his role from Alien.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And he was also on the Jim Henson series, The Storyteller.
Yep.
The
We could
Storyteller.
go on for
Yeah,
hours,
he was prolific.
possibly days, listing all of John Hurt's roles. The man was an unbelievable actor. He did a lot of really good, really memorable roles.
Yep. He will be missed.
He will definitely be missed. The thing is, we've been sitting here on the podcast mentioning the fact that we've been relatively doctor-free death-wise for 20
And we
years
all thought it
now.
was going to be Tom.
We all predicted Tom Baker would be on the list, and Tom Baker seemed to agree with us. And so suddenly we lose Hurt. I don't know if we've lost Hurt to buy Tom a few extra years. Is he like, a life vampire slowly sucking the life out of the other people around him?
God.
Does that
Does
mean
he
we
need
need to
to be
get a
actually
stake the
stopped by the
size of
doctor?
a giant ballista to stop him?
If Colin is next, we'll know that Tom is not natural.
Actually, it should be Peter should be next on the list. Then Colin.
Colin's older than Peter.
Well, technically, Peter was the youngest.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Colin Baker would technically be.
But until now, we have lost all the doctors in order.
Yeah, but
We
they're
lost
no
Hartnell.
longer in age in order either.
1,
so.
2, 1 again, 3. Yeah.
No, it'd be 1, 1, 2, 3.
Was it 1, 1, 2? Okay.
Yes, it was.
Both the second and third Doctor died in the 90s.
Wait, so it's the Fibonacci sequence, so next should be Colin. No, that's terrible math. Next would be Peter Davison.
Yes.
That was terrible
Except we have a problem.
Terrible math.
Because technically speaking, the War Doctor's the 9th Doctor. If
Yes.
you go by numeric Doctor order.
Well,
So
that's if he's not a number, he's excluded from the sequence.
we've
If he
gone
is a
1,
number,
1,
he throws
2,
a
3,
wrench in the
9.
works.
Yeah.
What about Peter Cushing?
Okay, fine.
think
It was
we're
1, 1, 1.
3 1s and a 2.
I don't know what sequence goes 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 8.
Happy Prime
Not any
Fibonacci?
sequence
I
I'm
don't know.
familiar with.
I
I
honestly...
mean, not 8, 9, whatever.
Anyway,
Yeah,
silly theories aside,
right.
Okay.
so next
We will miss John Hurt, but that's not the extent of our news. We've got some interim news though. Some episode news. Tim.
Yes, we have a air date for Series 10 confirmed. BBC America will be showing Doctor Who on Saturday, April 15th at 8 Central. And it will also return to BBC One on the same day. It will be, the Doctor Who broadcast will be followed by the US premiere of Class at 9 Central. And if you've been listening to us,
Woohoo.
you know we'll say, watch Doctor Who, then change the channel.
Yeah. It's unless you're a absolutely diehard Doctor Who fan, and even then prepare to be disappointed. But we're hoping Series 10 will be the highlight.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Also, according to Cultbox, the complete list of writers for Series 10 has been announced. and it features Stephen Moffat, Frank Cottrell Boyce, Sarah Dollard, Mike Bartlett, Jamie Matheson, Stephen Moffat and Peter Harness, Peter Harness and or Stephen Moffat, Toby Whithouse, Rona Monroe, Mark Gaddis, Stephen Moffat, and surprise, surprise, Stephen Moffat.
It's not surprising Stephen Moffat wrote the opening and the close, because that's kind of tradition. And then we have the middle bit. The thing is, he's co-writing it with Peter Harness, apparently.
Yes.
It's that actually comes from the way it was said. I've seen another article mentioning that. They said that Peter Harness and Stephen Moffat would be writing those 2 episodes, but they didn't specify in saying it whether they'd be writing them together or respectively.
Okay, so they don't know.
It's unclear as of now whether they're both writing both or whether it's one and then one.
Okay. Either way, that looks to be the lineup. Wasn't Mark Gaddis's entry last year around episode 10? I think might have been 9 or 8, but
something like that. Like 8. I think it was something like 8.
Yeah, he was trailing the end of the series.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't the greatest episode. Still, this is a pretty good lineup, other than Gaddis, who, is mediocre.
With its placement, I wonder if it's going to be related to the season plot or if it's going to be sort of the Nightmare and Silver of the season.
This has nothing to do with the rest of the season, but we needed to have some filler.
And this might be a good episode, and we're giving you a named monster just so you can wet your teeth.
Matt, you're spoiling future news.
I didn't say which one.
But that makes a good segue.
Yep. Good segue.
It's not spoiling news if you don't say what it is.
In a video posted to the Doctor Who YouTube channel, Mark Gaddis says he's bringing back an old favorite again. And by this he means the Ice Warriors. The Ice Warriors first debuted in, The Ice Warriors, which we reviewed last week. They have since been in a total of 5 stories. Typo. The last of which is Series 7's Cold War. Gaddis promises that there is a new type of Ice Warrior in this story. Now, we've been less than thrilled with Gaddis' original contributions to the Doctor Who universe of late. We shall have to see if he does what he does with a classic monster.
What's interesting with the Ice Warriors is this essentially means 3 duologies, because we've had 2 Brian Hale stories, the 2 Peladon stories, and now 2 Mark Gaddis stories.
Did he do Cold War?
Yep, I just Googled it to be sure.
Yeah.
He did Cold War.
He did Cold War, and half of that was really good episode. The other half was mediocre.
Yeah.
Which overall means it's a good episode.
I'm just hoping Mark Gaddis deals more with how he did the latter part of the episode.
Yes.
And not try to do a in the style of story, because every time he tries to do something in the style of, it fails miserably.
And that's the thing. Mark Gaddis is almost all of his episodes, except for I think 1, have been pseudo-historicals. And as you mentioned, the pseudo-historical was kind of the weaker part. So maybe it would be better just to see him do an all-out monster romp.
Well, it wasn't.
Or actually, I say all except for 2, I should say.
It wasn't even pseudo-historical. He pretty much mentioned in interviews and stuff that he tried to do the first part of Cold War in the style of movies like The Hunt for Red October.
Right, which if there were no Ice Warriors would make it a historical.
Yeah, but it's you're right. It's heavy on the pseudo, because he's basically trying to make it a Tom Clancy novel.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, that part failed miserably. There was none of the drama and tension that movies like Hunt for Red October had.
Right.
And instead, you basically got drunken doctor, which was played brilliantly, but not really adding to tension. And it really wasn't till the Ice Warrior broke free that you felt any kind of suspense and tension in it.
And then the Ice
And
Warrior
the-
story in of
that
itself was
episode
fantastic.
introduced Something
yeah.
that could be described as a new type of Ice Warrior, because we had an Ice Warrior outside its suit for the first time. I hope they don't go too gimmicky with this one. I hope it's
That's my fear.
respectful of the Ice Warrior legacy while still being fresh.
Yeah, I'm hoping that by new Ice Warrior he means he's going to bring back one of their leaders again, and do an update on those, because that would actually be interesting.
We'll have to see.
Although one person on Facebook commented as a result, "You mean a female Ice Warrior?"
That wouldn't be bad either.
That would not be bad. That would be interesting, at least.
Right.
An aspect of Ice Warrior culture we haven't seen.
Because what are the
Yeah, that
females
would be
like?
pretty cool.
Because there's got to be females.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they're like
Otherwise, how do they
dynamics.
propagate the species? I mean,
Mhm.
They've talked about having children, so
Mm-hmm. So wait, aren't the Ice Warriors basically just a suit, while the thing inside is just kind of a little frog-like thing,
well,
isn't it?
the thing inside is more of a reptilian creature, but
Or reptilian.
Yeah, they're not Daleks. They're not a little blob inside of a big suit.
they are much smaller than the big bulky thing that you see.
Mm-hmm.
But by much smaller, we mean less built.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're fast.
That thing is like an exosuit. It
Mhm.
beefs them up.
I was saying, does that mean the exosuit is going to necessarily look female, though?
We don't know.
Not
True.
necessarily,
And-
but we
and-
would have
and-
Yeah,
to
it
see.
is
speculating
entirely
here.
possible that that humans cannot tell the difference, especially when they're suited up.
Yeah, we
Mhm.
don't. We honestly do not know what Gaddis has in mind.
It could be that we've already seen a female.
Yeah, it's possible.
Very
we don't
possible.
know. It's honest. We'll have to see what Gaddis tells in mind, because he only gave us little teasers.
And
Right.
that's
Didn't give
the way
us-
to go about it, is to keep people interested with little teasers, just as long as they're
Little
not promising
teasers.
the moon.
And the footage he showed us was footage from Cold War, so
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Which means he's planning to at least reuse some of that, which is good, because that was a really
Well,
good
no,
update.
no, that's just the most modern appearance of the Ice Warriors. So
Well,
when
I'm
he's teasing Ice
assuming he's
Warriors,
using a
that's
very
the only
similar
stock
suit,
footage
though.
They have. I doubt they're going to be reusing footage, Matt.
Well, no. I'm not saying reusing footage. I'm saying reusing the suit.
Probably.
At least
They always
parts of
reuse
it,
the
not
suits.
wholesale. At least the basic outer skeleton suit. I'm sure the rubber mask and everything else needs to be resuited.
Probably not. They keep very good care of these things these days.
So.
they-
But
they-
also, they need to redo the masks, though, because different people, different sizes.
We'll see.
But the big bulky suit, that should be almost uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
But that's all we really have to go on at this point. So we know that episode 10 is going to be Ice Warriors. But we don't know
Mhm.
what and how. We know nothing of the plot and nothing of the twist he's adding.
It looks like it might be a standalone too. I don't think it's part.
We just mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it is, and that might actually help him out a little bit on this one. Anyway,
Mhm.
Moving on.
Moving on, there is a timeline to Series 11 out.
class
Yes?
ratings.
That's not next. That'll be Bill after this.
Oh,
Yep.
I didn't get that one then.
It's not a big article.
It's the one that's not highlighted in green because it was added after the fact, but it should have been there before you open them up.
It should have been. I didn't get it.
Like I
Oh,
said,
well.
it's not a huge article.
Anyway, continue, Tim.
So, Series 11 will be broadcast in the autumn of 2018. And new showrunner Chris Chibnall is right now working on Season 3 of his ITV crime drama Broadchurch. And that is being currently edited and will premiere in the British Islands of the UK on the February 27th.
Which means, of course, that means he can't deal with it until Broadchurch is dealt with.
Mhm.
Now, we can probably speculate, since he's taken this job, that this is going to be the final season of Broadchurch.
At least for the time being.
At least until he's done with Doctor Who, and, that could be, 5 years or more. When did Moffat take over? 2010? And he's leaving in
Yeah.
2017. That means that he was showrunner for 17. So Chibnall could conceivably hold showrunner for Doctor Who until 2025 or later.
Hmm.
Or he could run it for 3 years and say, or for 4 years and say, okay, I'm done.
Depending on how things turn out, I assume too.
Because Tavies ran it from 2005 to 2009. He ran for 4 years, so it all depends on how well he does and how long it takes him to wear out, and whether he can find a replacement. Because that's also the big issue.
But so far, we don't think Chris Chibnall has any plans to run 2 shows at the same time like Steve Moffat did.
I certainly hope not.
Pray not. Because that's just a one-way street to pain.
Yeah, that's kind of...
At least not if he's also going to be writing episodes. If he's not writing episodes, maybe. Because we haven't seen that before. But it's still probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
And I doubt... the BBC seems pretty content so far on the showrunner writing episodes, so even that is probably not likely to happen.
So what this means is that we're going to be reviewing the new series until probably around June, July of 2017, after which we're going to have 15, 16 months before we're going to get New Who other than the Christmas special. We can deal with it. We've dealt with it before, but it's just we'll have to.
It's an unusual stretch again, yeah. Well, we've done odd schedules before. Moffat had some really weird ones.
Yep. So that's all this article really says is that it's not that we're not going to see it until August 2018. But so now we know we have a go date for 2018. Well, go month anyway. So there we go. Bill.
All right, so now we go once again to class. I'll start with the consolidated ratings for episodes 3 and 4, which were shown 2 weeks ago. And we reported the initial overnight estimates. We actually have found out that the actual rating is lower than the estimate for Night Visiting, which was broadcast at 10:47 p.m. and had an audience of 0.79 million viewers, a 7.5% share of the TV audience, as reported to us by DoctorWhoNews.net. The channel average for that time slot is 1.85 million.
Okay, so look at that. That means that the channel average for this time slot is over 1 million people more than what's actually watching this episode. That means by showing this, BBC has lost over 1 million viewers.
Ouch.
Probably not permanently, but at least for the time being. That is not a sign of a show doing well.
Right. An additional 0.29 million have watched the show on iPlayer since its release in October on BBC Three, which still together add up to less than 1.85 million.
And that channel average doesn't include the people watching the same usual shows on iPlayer. So
right. Episode 4, Colin Over a Lonely Heart, which aired immediately afterward, had a consolidated audience of 0.34 million watching, which was 5.2% of the audience, at a time when the average is normally 0.82 million.
Which means
episode 4 did increase its audience by 21% over the initial estimate, and 250,000 have watched it on iPlayer.
So that's pretty abysmal.
For the new, the recently aired, we had episode 7, What Quill Did, and the longer title, which had 0.76 million, which was 8.8% of the audience. It was fractionally up compared to the previous night, probably because this is the final two parts of the season, or maybe just because it had less competition. But it was outrated by Newsnight on BBC Two, but it beat Through the Keyhole on ITV. Season finale, The Lost, aired immediately after at 11:35 p.m., which with an audience, of 0.26 million.
For the finale.
Yeah.
Ouch.
It does not give iPlayer numbers for that, but I imagine based on these other numbers, less than the amount of people that watched it on iPlayer.
When the last but one episode officially kills your last episode.
And there's got to be somebody at BBC who's going, okay, glad that's over with. Contractual obligation over. Let's put some stuff on that actually gets ratings.
So, let's just sweep this all up and put it in a dumpster, right? Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty crappy for a Doctor Who spinoff. And that, as we've been saying, that probably means we're not going to see more of it, but that might be a good thing.
On the plus side, there's a better option.
At least not without a radical change that's big enough to convince
yeah.
On the plus side, there's a better chance of K9 and Friends coming back.
Not without Sarah Jane. Ain't going to happen.
Well, K9's got his own show now, but...
K9 comes back without Friends.
Yeah, but you realize, Matt, that show's not actually a BBC production.
K9
It's
alone.
an Australian-Canadian production that just happens to be run by Bob Baker.
And it's a different K9.
Actually, technically, it's Mark 1.
Mark 1 is Leela's, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So not the same one that's with Sarah Jane.
Nope. But no, Bob
How
Baker
did he get back to Earth?
We don't know.
Fail.
Time War, wibbly wobbly.
Well, he did appear. He did appear on Earth via a hole in space-time.
Oh,
But
okay.
Time War, wibble wobble.
I've actually watched most of the first season of K9.
At least they hand-waved it into existence.
I think part of the issue is they don't have the rights to reference anything from Doctor Who except for
Correct.
K9.
So they gave K9 amnesia.
Mm-hmm. Of course they did.
They had to, because he couldn't say Doctor, he couldn't mention the TARDIS or Gallifrey, or any of that, because they don't have the intellectual property to. BBC could have sued their asses into the ground, and have been absolutely within their right to do so.
This is why you're lame, BBC. Anyway.
No, any company would do that, Matt. If it's the same thing that Paramount's been doing with that fan film. They threatened a lawsuit because they were stepping on their intellectual property, and they were doing so in a way. I'm not saying it's the right thing, but I'm saying it's what a company does when they're protecting their assets.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. So it's official. We have been hearing rumors for on and off for about 6 months now.
Mm-hmm.
That Peter Capaldi may be leaving in his role as the Doctor. And as of the 30th of January, we have the answer that yes, Capaldi will be leaving the role of Doctor Who at the end of the current production run, which is the Christmas special for 2017.
When I saw this, my first reaction was, already?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know. I kind of feel that way too. It feels like he just got here.
Which is good, considering,
I think that's partially because the last two Doctors each had effectively a year of specials at the end,
Mm-hmm.
which Capaldi hasn't really gotten.
Yes, he has.
What do you mean?
How much Doctor Who was in 2017?
One episode, which is not a year of specials.
2016.
2016, one episode, which is not a year of specials. It's one special.
By the end of this, Capaldi will have had 1, 2, 3 seasons, 1, 2, 3, 4 Christmas specials. What did Matt Smith have? Season 5 Christmas. Season 6 Christmas. Season 7 Christmas, and then 2 specials.
I was going to say, yeah, he had something. Season 7 had 3 or 4 Christmas specials.
No, well,
I'm counting November 23 as Christmas because it's easier.
Because that was anniversary.
That's just like The End of Time is a Christmas special, even though part of it was on New Year's Day.
That was because it's a 2-parter. But I'll ignore that for the most part. The thing is, that's only 2 specials more than what Capaldi's going to have at the end. That's only 2 specials.
I think it's due to the fact that the writing for Capaldi has been so much better than Smith. So it
Quite
felt
possible.
like
So
Smith's
it felt like the
era
Smith
was
era-
dragging on. Yeah.
It just felt like Smith was dragging because you didn't care. You spent so much time not caring. And here, this has been a fun ride. You
It's
don't
been a
want
fun ride,
it
and
to
we're
be
just
over.
starting to get to understand this Doctor, and now he's suddenly going away.
The first season with him was a little rocky, but this past season we've definitely been begging for more.
I didn't even mind the last season. They had more bad episodes, but they still had some good episodes in Series 8.
Also, I mean, it was a little rocky, but I think we generally saw it as an improvement over 7.
Yes.
But we definitely weren't as positive about it as we were with Series 9.
Mostly because we didn't like Danny Pink was our big issue with Series 8. And he did have his 0 to hero moment at the end of it, so.
The Series 9 had some great moments.
Yes. And we were kind of hoping Series 10, but also, if you're looking at this means that once again we are going to have a new showrunner taking over with pretty much a blank slate. We don't know if Bill will be returning for Series 11. Nardole, we know, will have gotten off by then. So, are we going to have
wondering
another
at this
case?
point if even Moffat and Chibnall know whether Bill's returning for Series 11 or not.
I don't know. But, is this means that we are going to have another issue where we have an absolutely new Doctor, new companion, new everything going into the next series? Because the change between the Davies era and the Moffat era was pretty damn drastic. And it really took a lot of work for Moffat to get on his feet. I really do not want to see Chibnall have to chew through all of that again.
Well, Chibnall's actually started a show from scratch, though, himself, too. So
Yes.
hopefully he knows how to land on his feet a little bit better. Especially if he's not going to try and run 2 shows at the same time.
Yeah, that was a big mistake on Moffat.
That was the worst mistake Moffat could have done, yes, is try to keep running 2 shows.
Which is
one
probably
fresh.
also why Gaddis is not showrunner, because of his heavy hand in Sherlock. They figured it's not going to work.
That and the fact that that Gaddis basically has been cranking out nothing but crap for the last 3 seasons.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason Moffat got picked for the job was he was putting out quality shit in the Russell T Davies era. He was putting out the best stuff out there. So when Russell T said, "Yeah, I'm done," it's like, let's pick the best writer and make him showrunner. Unfortunately, he wasn't the best showrunner. Moffat at least said somebody that this guy has made a couple of good series. Let's give him to Doctor Who and see what he does with it. And that's a better way of looking at it. That's a much better thing to do. I'm really hoping this will change things how it is. I'm really hoping, though, he doesn't get the egocentrical, artsy-fartsy idea like Moffat did and said, let's make it a fairy tale.
Let's do something completely different.
Yes.
Let's ruin any hopes and dreams of the fans. Let's not even make it about the Doctor for his entire season, because that'll work.
I would love to see him finally come back to some of the ideas from the RTD era as well.
Yes,
and that's
please.
partially possible because Chibnall worked pretty closely with RTD for a chunk of that, so he might still have some of those ideas bubbling around in his head.
Like, I would love to see what he could do with the Shadow Society. We've seen them in
Shadow
the past
Proclamation,
season.
Moffat has brought them up more.
Yeah.
We have seen them at the beginning of Series 9, so there has been some work on that. I would love to see some more detail, but hey, it's part of the Doctor Who lore. It's been dealt with by 2 showrunners now, so the likelihood of Chibnall coming back to it's actually not that bad. I would love to see more with the Jadoon. I would love to see more with where can you go wrong with space rhinos? Come on, space rhinos.
They're rhinos in space.
But I would love to see more with some of the classic or the new classic stuff that was brought up in the Russell T Davies era, we could ignore the Slevine because. But yeah, but still, I'm just sad to see him go because I was enjoying Capaldi's Doctor. His personality, the return to the brash, grumpy Doctor. Yeah, I kind of liked that. And on the side note, with that, of course, every time a Doctor announces he's retiring, immediately BBC News or another organization puts out a list of potential replacements for the Doctor. And this is no exception. BBC News put out a whole bunch of names of people we will definitely not be seeing as the Doctor.
And pretty much all of them they're pretty much all fan favorites, which is the only reason. At least one of these, there's a literally 0% chance, and some of the others are probably pretty close.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. In fact, you got to remember, most of the time when they choose a new Doctor, it is not somebody famous.
Yeah.
I mean, the exceptions to that have been Eccleston, who was quasi-famous.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Davison,
who was quasi-famous.
And Peter Davison, who had a few decent things under his belt, but wasn't massively famous either.
Quasi-famous.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He had. I mean, these people had one really monumental series.
The
belt.
only complete exception, and for very obvious reasons, was John Hurt. And guess how many seasons he got by himself? None.
And to an extent, Capaldi himself.
That's true.
And technically, Tom Baker did have a movie under his belt.
Yeah, but it was not really a famous movie.
Yeah, he was fairly low profile pre-Doctor.
It was Ray Harryhausen, but he was the villain, and villains don't normally get much acclaim in those kind of things.
A big thing at that point. Capaldi was well known because he had not only acted in a very popular series, but he had written and directed several things.
Mm-hmm.
Hartnell had been in a very popular series, but that was really about it. He was actually acting out of type when he took up the role of the Doctor. It was a huge departure for him. Likewise, Patrick Troughton had done a few things, but nothing that made him a household name.
Right.
When he took up, he was a household name, of course, by the end of his run as the Doctor, but not at the beginning. John Pertwee had done a couple of things, but nothing that had absolutely made him household name material. Same with Tom Baker.
Paul McGann is another one where he had a few things under his belt, but they weren't as high profile.
Mm-hmm.
These people weren't A-list actors.
And they always keep wanting to list A-list actors, and it's not going to happen. Just stop.
Correct. A-list actors always want too much money.
Mm-hmm. And also their schedules are pretty cluttered too.
Yeah, they're going to be completely busy. That's why we'll never see David Tennant, and probably why we're not going to see Catherine Tate.
We'll probably never see.
We'll never see them outside of cameos.
Jeff Schnicks posted how he wanted to see, I think, Benedict Cumberbatch as the
Cumberbatch will never do this kind of work again.
He'll never come back to television series again because he's got Marvel now.
He is a Hollywood A-list actor.
There's also the fact that, and as I've said, I don't see Benedict playing the Doctor as anything other than Sherlock, and we already have him playing Sherlock.
Yeah, so forget it.
Shouldn't be. No, Cumberbatch is not on this list. Like I said, none of the people that were in there have ever been A-list actors.
Mm-hmm.
Cumberbatch is not he's not even English A-list, he's Hollywood A-list now.
Mm-hmm.
So he's huge. Mm-hmm. This is why you will never see Johnny Depp because he keeps showing up in these lists.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's never going to happen.
That's never going to happen.
The one list here has Andy Serkis on it at the bottom. Probably not.
No.
Actually, he's the closest to a possible.
He's closer, but he's still very notable in Hollywood for doing a lot of, especially motion capture work as well as acting on top of the motion capture. But that's the reason why he's going to be staying there, is because he makes buku bucks in Hollywood doing that.
Correct.
Speaking of people that make or at least I'm assuming make plenty of money, and actually from what I've heard does, the most we're going to see Emma Watson for is probably a 1-episode role.
If anything.
Not seeing her as a main character.
Mhm.
She might be in a Christmas special, like what's her name?
Right. Absolutely. Christmas special. Just she's definitely in the category of some of the people that have appeared for Christmas specials. But
They have, David
Yeah.
Harewood on this list, who was already in Doctor Who as Joshua Naismith in End of Time, the villain.
Mm-hmm.
And he has now moved on to being in CW Supergirl.
I knew I recognized his face from something other than End
Yeah,
of
he's
Time.
frickin' Martian Manhunter. That means he's made the list from BBC television list to America's television list, and the next step is Hollywood.
You say
People
that,
already
but
want too much to be in
the-
Doctor Who.
if they offered John Barrowman the role of the Doctor for 3 cents an hour, he would take it.
Yeah, but that's because he's John Barrowman.
He'd show
And
up
he
for
would
Doctor Who
play
if
the
they give him
Doctor
a
as
sandwich.
Captain Jack. We do not want that.
You ask John Barrowman if he'll show up for a cameo, he'll show up all day just for a sandwich.
Pretty much. If he could play Captain Jack, he would do it for a sandwich at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Just because he loves the character. I don't actually think John Barrowman would want the role of the Doctor.
No, he wouldn't want the role of the Doctor. He'd want the role of Jack back.
Yeah, if they said, yeah, could you come back and play Captain Jack for a season? John Barrowman would be all over that shit.
Right.
You'd hear him screaming Yahoo all the way from America and riding a rocket all the way back.
Yeah, he would do that. But I don't think he would want to play the Doctor because he prefers to play Captain Jack. And the fact that John Barrowman was such a high-profile actor in Doctor Who, it'd be really hard for him to,
come back as the Doctor and not be noticeable, and people going,
Oh no, I'm not saying that they're going to offer. I'm just saying in the hypothetical.
I know. I'm just mentioning in that hypothetical situation.
But yes, that's also why Catherine Tate has no place being on this list.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I could not see her in that role anyway. She's to be blunt, she's way too crass.
Hey, we haven't heard from Miles in a while.
I don't think my sound was working for a while.
Okay.
Oh. Okay.
Besides, I want Whoopi Goldberg to play the Doctor.
Wow.
That's actually kind of reaching out there. That might almost work.
That would be very bizarre.
Because, everyone's saying, should the Doctor regenerate into a woman or into a non-white actor? Whoopi Goldberg, and then you basically have her play Guinan.
That could be
That
pretty
would
cool.
actually be really good.
Oh my god, that would be awesome.
No, and the fact is, you prefer the older Doctor? Not Whoopi Goldberg, Nichelle Nichols.
No.
But neither one of them is British.
That's the main problem.
They can fake it.
See, that's why I was trying to think of if I could think of like a 40-year-old sassy Latina with an English accent, but I couldn't think of one. Probably because that was really
With an English
specific.
accent? No, not this hour.
And that would be hard. That would be hard for people to give up. Is the innate Britishness of the Doctor?
Mhm.
Right.
There needs to be a little
I have no
something.
issue. My only issue with a female Doctor is as long as they have a writer that's on board with it, because if they don't, it's going to be a crappy season.
Oh yeah.
The writer needs to be synced up with the actor.
Mhm.
I have absolutely no problem with a non-white actor, but a non-British actor, I don't think I'd be okay with.
Yeah, it's sorry. It's Doctor Who is like Britain's ambassador to the world.
It's like not having Japanese people in a Godzilla movie.
You just don't do it.
It ain't right. There's even in the American movies, there's at least one guy.
I mean, yes, the Doctor can be Scottish. He can be Welsh. He can be from the north. He can be from even North Ireland, because that's technically part of Britain.
Will
Mhm.
she?
Much as the
No.
rest of Ireland kind of resents that. But still, it's still,
Right.
he's like the goodwill ambassador for Britain to the world, which is ironic considering he's technically not even from this planet.
I don't know how I would feel about the Commonwealth if it was Canadian or Aussie or something.
I don't know. Can they do a good British accent?
The Aussies, they kind of sound like they're from the north, depending upon the region.
Because it really would depend on how thick their regional accent is and whether they can mimic another accent. Because
Well, I just meant like if someone played the Doctor with a Canadian accent or with an Australian accent.
No, just no. If an Australian plays the role but can play it and sound like an English person, I have no issue with it. But if he sounds like he's freaking from the University of Woolloomooloo, Australia,
There's going to be issues.
that's going to be an issue.
Crikey.
No, not Crocodile Dundee, but
I can't see that as the Doctor. It just doesn't click for me.
Right.
If he sounds like the freaking Canadians from South Park, that's going to be an issue for me.
Yeah.
However, you've seen, Australians able to do Canadian accents, and they all can do British accents like Hugh Jackman, etc. I can deal with that. But so that's kind of a make or break for me.
Anyway.
There are some names on these lists that are unknown enough that they could be cast in the role, but the fact that these names are being thrown out here now means we're not going to see them in this role.
Very much.
Because every time a new Doctor has come out, a list of names has come out, and never has anybody on this list ever been picked.
Not even remotely close.
Was David Tennant not on the list? Because I feel like he was pretty well predicted.
That might be the only exception.
By the way, I just noticed.
I think David Tennant's listing was announced before they could make a list.
Yeah.
So I just noticed Andrew Scott, who plays Moriarty's on this list. He's another one who he's already too big on BBC shows. Why would you even consider him as being possible? You know it's not going to happen.
He's going to want too much
You couldn't
money.
afford him much. Yeah.
Well, there's the fact that he's already playing he is already effectively playing a version of the Master on another BBC show.
Yeah.
He's not. They're not going to cast him in another show and be their own competition.
At the same time,
He could play
he
the
only
Master.
has 1 or 2 series under his belt, and if he tried to do it as a departure, a completely different character from what he's playing, it could work. At the same time, again,
I could see him in the role of like a Jackie or a Danny Pink doing something completely new, but I don't think a high-profile work would be a good idea with him having been so high-profile on Sherlock.
There are other names
So-so.
that have come up in fan speculation as well. We mentioned Emma Watson was on the list. Rupert Grint is apparently on the fan list. A whole bunch of other people that have come up. There's some people that have been crossed over on both lists, but still, we're probably not going to see anybody on this list. They are going to check theater, and they are going to check people that have just started their television career and look for somebody that particularly shines, and they'll be picked as the next Doctor.
Pretty
But
much.
that's how they do this. That's where they're going to look for this. Also, DoctorWhoNews.net says that means we might not see the Doctor till next year because of how late the filming is. False. They will need him by December for filming the regeneration scene.
Yes, they will. We will need to see that regeneration at the end
I don't
of
think
December.
we've ever seen a regeneration scene where they didn't have a face until the next episode, right? So the face has always come up.
Yeah, although sometimes the regeneration was at the beginning of the season, like with Colin Baker to Sylvester McCoy. But that's
been
very,
one of
very
the very
rare.
few exceptions.
Yeah, that's.
I think we didn't have one at the end of the second Doctor to the third Doctor because I don't think he showed up until the next season.
That's right. Second Doctor is the only time that happened that way.
Anyway, we need to move on because we're
we're running way late now. I've been trying to stop this for like the last 2-3 minutes.
Stop this crazy train.
Aaron, please. When we say we're late, we need to move on. And you're next.
I will. Okay. So, Big Finish wins at the BBC Audio Drama Awards last night. This is the 30th. So a couple of nights ago, Doctor Who Absent Friends was a winner for Big Finish in the 2017 BBC Audio Drama Awards. The opening story of last year's Doctor Who Doom Coalition Series 3, Doctor Who Absent Friends by John Dorney, starring Paul McGann, Hattie Morahan, and Nicola Walker, directed by Ken Bentley, was the winner last night in the Best Online-Only Audio Drama category in the 2017 BBC Audio Awards. Oh, that's pretty cool. Congratulations.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's. Have we seen Big Finish win like this before?
They win award. Yeah, I think they tend to win at least, or I think they tend to win one category at the BBC Audio Awards each year.
Okay.
All right.
Since we're running behind with the big news, do we want to skip the competition roundup since they tend to take a while?
Please, yes, because the competition roundup takes forever. We'll just talk about it next week.
Yep. So, okay, yeah, we can talk about it next week. In our Big Finish news, we start off some Bernice Summerfield novels are being re-released as ebooks. That's Bernice Summerfield and the Squire's Crystal and Bernice Summerfield and the Glass Prison. So fans of those books that want them in ebook, they're coming out in February. Is there not a day? I don't think there's a day, but in the month of February.
So next month, sometime very soon here.
Okay. And the latest short trip is out, written by Jonathan Barnes and directed by Lisa Bowerman. It is The World Beyond the Trees. Medtech Chenka is alone, no doctor, no TARDIS, no Molly O'Sullivan, but the strange environment she's stranded in is about to get even stranger, with Liv the only one who can help out. There's a message here for her and for someone very far away. And judging by the photo on the cover, I'm guessing the doctor is actually going to show up at some point. That is out now for the usual $2.99. And in upcoming things news, they've recently finished filming and are ready to announce the name of the second story in June's First Doctor Companion Chronicles set, which is Across the Darkened City. On the planet Shade, the Kaons, an invading race of strange amorphous creatures that ravenously absorb energy, have reduced the city to a desolate ruin. Separated from the Doctor and Vicky, Stephen has to join forces with an unexpected ally to find his way back to the TARDIS. Ahead lies a nightmare journey through the dark, a test of endurance and trust. That will be as part of the First Doctor Volume 2, which releases in June. And that wraps up our Big Finish news.
All right. I wanted to spend a bit to talk about my experiences with Amazon Video, which has the American hosting for Doctor Who, but because of time, I will hold that off for a week as well. So expect a discussion about that next week in our Geek Talk segment. Instead, we are going to push ahead to the 5-minute challenge because we are that much pressed for time tonight. And I do believe it is my turn to do the challenge, if I am correct. I think everyone else has had a turn recently. I haven't.
Yep.
I was kind of thinking I'm up on the list sometime here soon too, but if you're going to go ahead, then go ahead.
All right.
Stopwatch is ready when you are.
All right. Go ahead.
All right. Starting in 3, 2, 1.
We start the episode in the latter half of the 21st century as we deal with the TMAT system, which is basically the transporter from Star Trek, only worse. They need to have both a sending and receiving platform, and everything is routed through Moonbase. And, of course, the fact that it is the latter half of the 21st century, that means that the world is suffering from overpopulation, and that the major cities of the world, London, Moscow, New York, etc., all need vital shipments of food, medicine, and basically everything else to keep afloat. All of this is now done by the TMAT system. No more planes full of cargo, no more ships, no more trucks. It's all beamed directly to your city. However, we started the episode with a shift change between the night shift and the day shift on the Moonbase, as we discover that their system is already 5 minutes behind schedule due to the incompetence of the guy working the Moonbase night shift. the head manager comes up and shoos him out. But before the guy can leave for the night, there are screams from the corridor, and the moon base is taken over by our old friends, the Ice Warriors, who threaten the main boss to have them set up the machine, and he promptly sabotages it, causing all of the TMAT circuits to go out all across the world. He is promptly killed for his disobedience. Meanwhile, the Doctor, Zoe, and Jamie arrive on Earth in a space museum. It is not long before they are caught by the curator, who initially wants to throw them out, but when the Doctor expresses interest in the rocket model that he has on display, they soon start talking shop, and the ability to throw him out is completely forgotten about. Meanwhile, of course, things are getting hectic in TMAT Central. The cities are asking why their shipments of toilet paper are not arriving, and things are getting hectic. They can't get up there because, of course, the only way up there is by TMAT, at least until somebody mentions the rocket. And so they go to the Space Museum to talk to the only known person that still deals with rockets. Of course, they run into the Doctor. The Doctor overhears what's going on and immediately volunteers to help. Because he's the Doctor, that's what he does. So pretty soon, the Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe are pretty much put into a rocket and launched into space, where a bunch of Apollo 13-esque hijinks ensue. One person on the moon base has managed to escape and is trying to radio. They get a hold of the Doctor and soon help them land. Meanwhile, the night shift manager is, of course, helping the Ice Warriors because he's a craven coward. They managed to get TMAT working long enough to lure the head technician up there to try to fix it, but she quickly escapes, joins the Doctor and them in their resistance, but that doesn't stop the night shift technician from fixing TMAT, and soon they're sending down a whole bunch of these weird pods. The pods, when they explode, basically chokes a being to death. In a emergency situation, when this happens, they blow this dust out into the atmosphere, which of course begins a giant wave of, well, soap suds, it looks like, as that soon starts trying to choke the life out of the planet. Meanwhile, the Ice Warriors send down one of their own to try to take out their weather control. The Doctor soon manages to gain control of the moon base and is sent back down to relieve them of this issue. And after a bit of trial and error, discovers that they're basically stopped by water. Meanwhile, this is all, of course, a segue to the big invasion planned by the aliens. The guy that had betrayed them betrays the Ice Warriors by showing that they're planning on sending a signal to land their fleet on the moon and use TMAT to launch an invasion on Earth. The Doctor realizes that this is going to be an issue, but since they've heard the signal, they can duplicate it. He sends up a satellite with that signal on relay, beams back to the moon base, and disables the other signal just in time for those ships to go into an orbit around the sun. He quickly polishes off the last of the Ice Warriors on the moon base, and the world is safe. The Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe move on before questions can be asked. The end.
Okay. You did it in 4 minutes. And I believe when I first saw it, it said 47 seconds.
Under the wire. Not bad for a six-parter.
Definitely not bad for a six-parter, because the six-parters are long.
Yes, they are. All right.
I'm trying to think. That's 20 minutes per episode times 6.
And so now we're getting into what we like the most or least on the episode. And Miles, you are up first. What you liked most overall about the episode?
Miles?
Goes to Miles. Planet Miles. This ground control to Miles.
Mr. Reed Lobato.
His mic was acting up again. Apparently, I'm assuming, refreshing.
Okay, so while Miles is trying to fix, we will skip him to Aaron.
Wait, are you back?
Miles?
Can you hear me?
There he is.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Miles. What you liked about the episode overall?
I like the combination of fantastical futuristic technology with the more realistic, more present-day rocket technology.
Yeah.
Despite you have your fantastical teleporter T-Mat Star Trek technology, but it's they're still being shot up into space in a giant rocket, and which looks pretty close to the crap we were shooting people up to back up in the space back in the 60s. I thought it was a neat little mix.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, that's really all they had as context for what would go into space.
And they weren't far off.
They weren't far. I mean, well, this was 69, I think, either late 68, early 69, somewhere in there.
Something like that.
So, we had already been launching rockets up. The moon landing wasn't for a little bit. So, but we were definitely in the Apollo program, and those do look kind of like Apollo rockets, don't they?
Just about. Also, might I add, decent use of stock footage. They use stock footage only when necessary.
Yep. By the way, this was January through March 69, so
it's very late 69.
Very early 69.
Very early, but it probably released. Is that when it released?
That was when it aired.
That's when it aired, so it was recorded in late 68.
Oh, this was back when they were doing episode a week, so remember, there wasn't a lot of post back then.
Yeah, but
So
there's a little bit of leeway between filming, though.
Oh, I think it was about 2 weeks from filming to airing.
Yeah.
And during that 2 weeks, they were filming the rest of the next episode and the next episode.
Yeah, it was pretty bad back then. It was pretty grueling.
Wow, it's worse than when I used to do a review every month.
Yeah. So really, they had no other frame of reference. I mean, the space shuttles weren't on the drafting board until another 2 years.
At least one blog that I've seen going through Classic Who points out the fact that Doctor Who pretty much immediately started focusing on Earth once they realized once it became public how little was on the moon.
Yeah. I'm not sure that's why they focused that way, because I think that was budgetary, but still.
No, but I think that was a contributing factor to the point that people were less interested in space exploration after, or at least had different ideas of what was in space compared to what they thought of before that.
To be honest, it just seems like the second Doctor area really loved the moon for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, this is the second time we've had an issue on the moon, because the first one was
second. Isn't this like the third?
The invasion, they have an issue related to the moon.
But did it take place at all on the moon?
I think there was a fleet hidden behind the moon that caused them to.
But no, they didn't actually take place on the moon, though. Is the point, Bill?
It is the second episode, though, that actually takes place on the moon, at least for a good chunk of its filming, because the moon base with the Cybermen earlier, also takes place on the moon, and is sometimes confused for parts of this episode.
I get the impression with this episode that Brian Hales was sitting there like, "Damn you for taking the title of the moon base."
Yeah.
Damn you to hell.
I think so. And it's like, that would have been perfect for this, but damn it, the Cybermen already took it. Anyway. Aaron, your favorite thing?
My favorite thing was some of just the intensity of some of the sneaking around and confrontations that went on. I would say, I'm trying to figure out the word for it. It's dropped from my mind. The drama or God, the scary parts where they're trying to, sneak around and and also when they're confronting
the moments of tension.
the Ice Warriors. Yeah, moments of tension, basically. So I enjoyed that. I thought it really kind of made the serial a lot more engaging.
All right, Tim.
I like how this was grounded in like the science fact of the rocket ships and the actual space travel and the Yuri Gagarin. Like it seemed reminiscent of the way other sci-fi shows and movies of the period that did this. The fact that talking about G-forces and gravity and rocket fuels and everything. It wasn't just all just hocus pocus, like it's the future, we don't have to explain it. If that makes sense.
Yeah. It had a good science fact basis rather than pure fiction, speculation fiction.
Mm-hmm.
So it was not fully correct, but still,
It wasn't fully correct, but they weren't all the way there themselves at the time. So
Correct.
What they actually had right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, how about you?
I have to give some huge kudos to those suit actors, now getting to see the Ice Warriors as they were back then. It takes a lot of really heavy suit acting in order to make what is essentially a giant green waddling penguin be menacing.
Mm-hmm.
In lesser hands, these guys could have been ridiculous, and yet they managed to hold the tension in every scene they're in.
Yeah.
I think these guys were some of the professionals too. Yeah, I'm recognizing some of the names that did the actors in this. And yeah, some of them actually were.
A lot of them were the main suit actors they would pick.
One of the guys, Sonny Caldenas, would later be the mean Mongolian in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh.
And an emperor in The Fifth Element.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of these guys is big. This is him cutting his teeth on something.
And the others, Steve Peters, Tony Harwood, I recognize their names. So I'm thinking they might be regular suit actors for the Doctor Who era. I
Most
bet they
likely.
did Cybermen too.
But they were probably Cybermen. They probably did other costuming for the show too.
Yeah.
So essentially, they were throwing their biggest A game for monsters at this, and it does show. Otherwise, they could have easily fallen apart on lesser hands.
All right. Bill.
I'm going to say the score. The way this episode was scored, and it was coupled with the cinematography at some points, but just in general, the score went a long way toward making this feel like a classic monster movie.
At times.
At times. Other times it hit me as being a little bit cheesy. A little bit 60s.
Well,
it was 60s.
Yes, I know, but I mean,
even on Universal Hollywood has suffered from that a bit.
It sounded a bit wacky sometimes for what was going on, but that might have just been me.
Again, the era kind of suffered from that. They wouldn't really get out of that until the 70s in a lot of places.
All right. As for me, Matt mentioned the suit actors. I have to go with the main Ice Warrior. He played a real bastard.
Oh yeah, their leader.
He did it really well.
Mm-hmm.
He was a real son of a bitch and really a ruthless bastard. And I had to. Considering he was playing a different helmet, everything, and I think this was the first one that actually had to act more than just stomp around and go.
And genius. Yeah.
Yeah.
This was the first one to actually go, I'm going to kill you if you don't do what I tell you. Mm-hmm. Essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And also, he because of the different helmet, they had to give him a different appliance too, because it had to wrap around his head a bit.
Yeah. but he pulled it off brilliantly. So that's what we liked. What didn't we like? And Miles, you were up first, provided your mic is working. Apparently
Honestly,
Go ahead.
I thought the weakest point was actually the Ice Warriors. In simple terms of, unlike whereas in the original Ice Warriors, the creatures themselves are more characters. Here, the story just feels like you could actually insert any monster. You could just take out Monster A, insert Monster B. There wasn't. It wasn't much, they were just the generic villain, unlike with the Ice Warriors or in the Peladon stories.
There were a few scenes where it felt like, where it felt like they were interchangeable with Daleks or Cybermen.
But you could
Cybermen.
Mostly Cybermen.
Yeah, if it had been Daleks, the death toll would have been higher.
Well, yeah,
yes.
like there was one scene like where he was threatening it. I'm like, the only difference is the Dalek would have started chanting "exterminate" by now.
And,
Really?
and also they were a little more human. There was that much factor. They were a little more humane, whereas the Cybermen would have been just, you failed us, you're dead now. Boom, dead.
Really,
And
I
the
was
same with the
watching
Daleks.
this, and I was realizing how much the Santarans were basically just a rehash of the Ice Warriors.
Pretty much. It was the Santarans did kind of knock off the Ice Warriors a bit because apparently, I don't know if this is true or not, but apparently the people didn't quite like the Ice Warriors when they went to colors, so they decided not to continue them after their second attempt.
And moved on to Santarans.
And essentially, then my idea might have been, let's take some of the good parts of that, though, and make a totally different creature out of it, and here you got the Santarans. Knockoffs.
Maybe those old suits just look too cheesy in color, and they just didn't want to remake the suits.
To be honest, remaking the suits in the numbers that would require a decent group of Ice Warriors probably was going to be very expensive.
Nowadays, they can just do it with CGI.
They could do the big number scenes with CGI, yes.
But yeah, this Miles, I will agree with you in the fact that this felt more like a Santaran plot to me. And it does come off as being very Santaran.
Which is funny because the Santarans weren't here yet.
I know, but it's the kind of thing, and that's what made me really think, yeah, the Ice Warriors are basically the second Doctor Santarans. That's what the Ice Warriors would evolve into, starting with the third and fourth Doctor, is basically, yeah, roles that would have gone to Ice Warriors became Santaran roles.
Shame, really.
All right, Aaron, what didn't you like about this episode?
I found kind of how the society was kind of frustrating in that they really only had one person who was truly an expert on the TMAT system.
Technically, they had two, but one died within the first 10 minutes of the series. Or of the serial.
Yeah.
They had two, but still. Like, I know, and then like their only defense is that, oh well, the TMAT system is so new. Like I don't even know how to do it. She has to do it.
If that's the case, then their entire civilization should not be based. Should not depend on it to survive.
Yeah. Already, it's so advanced.
And that does seem to be a Brian Hale's writing flaw. Because he did that exact same thing the last episode with the, what was it? The Ion.
Oh yeah, only one person knew how to operate the main machine.
Yep. So, it's apparently a writing trope he gets stuck in, because that's the same thing here. Only person A knows how to operate the MacGuffin.
Oh, hail MacGuffin.
So yeah, that was mine.
Spinnis,
All right.
hello. We got a person in the chat. Hello, Spinnis. Anyway.
Tim, what did you like least about the episode?
It's me.
I had a hard time swallowing the idea that the transmat completely killed any interest in space travel.
I know! I mean,
Yeah, that thought occurred to me as well. They have
I
no
mean, they're-
rockets, so I'm like, so they're not planning to go anywhere else ever again.
you would think, with the major cities hurting for resources and stuff, that they would have had some people that would be willing to go out to the asteroid belt to mine for resources.
I mean,
Right.
like
That there would be farms on Mars.
the invention of the airplane didn't kill the boat.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
pretty much. There's still uses for the boat.
Just because you can go from Tokyo to London instantaneously doesn't mean that you're not going to look up at the stars and go, I wonder what's out there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently, in this world, everybody devolved to sitting on their couch, eating chips, and watching the game.
Wally.
In other words, they all became Americans.
It's the humans from Wally.
Yeah, pretty much.
Space Knee is also sad about Capaldi leaving.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Oh.
Matt.
Yeah, it's been around to me. One little nitpick. Trying to think really quick off the top of my head. It's something. It seemed way too coincidental that people would allow silly things to fly that shouldn't have flown, like letting the one person who knows how to make the TMAT stuff work go up to the moon and suddenly everything stops again. I mean, are you guys thinking with your front lobes at all?
Well, the fact that nobody ever on there thought this might be a trap.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, they didn't know that it was an invasion. They thought it was a technical issue.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you send up a technical crew without the main person, leave the main person down the ground to walk them through it after they're done fixing
Honestly,
communications.
that's the whole point of there not being any technical crews that know how to work it for some reason.
Yeah, it's only person X
Except
and
they
person
did have
Y.
technical crews.
Yeah, but they're supposed to be working on the supervision of the people that know how it works.
Flip table.
They're just Yabo maintenance guys. They're just
We are.
Flip table, they're a bunch of morons that just want to get abducted by the Ice Warriors.
I'd just like to point out that this is a few hundred years or a few thousand years before the original Ice Warriors.
2,900 years exactly.
Yeah, 2,900 years before the original Ice Warriors, and we can already see humankind becoming too reliant on supervision and relying on the computers. Even though one of the main characters is is actually pretty frustrated with the computers, we can still see kind of the incompetence and the whole standoffishness, like, well, just let this take care of itself type thing go on and let the computer deal with it.
Yeah.
Working its way into society. Just wanted to point that out.
All right, Bill.
Okay, I'm going to say the lead human guy. I forget his name. He was Sir something, I think. But his main job is to come in and bark questions that distract
James
from everything
Gregson?
else. Yeah.
Yeah, the main guy at TMAT.
I felt like the entire story could have gone just as well if he had never came in and started barking questions.
Yeah, he's essentially like a useless general.
Especially since he's asking questions the audience already knows. He's not asking for exposition. He's just there.
I think that's part of Brian Hale's. He seemed to have a rage against clueless management in authority positions. Because if you remember correctly, the main guy in the last one was much the same way.
Yeah. But he at least had, there was enough plot for him to be there. So I didn't have an issue with his presence. This guy, he felt useless. I mean, granted, in the real world, there are useless people like that, but...
Well, also in the previous story, he had also in the previous story, there's a background and, some kind of character development for him.
Right. Now, if the other guy, I forget his name too, but the main guy, the one that sends them on the mission, if he was like that, I'd be more willing to live with it, because there's a reason for him to be in the story. He does things, and it makes the story move forward. Where this other guy, he's just there to be an overbearing bureaucrat.
Mm-hmm. Which happens.
So, my issue is how quickly things went south on Earth. You know, these days with everything, you hold up a little bit of a reserve. You know, we can hold out for X amount of time, but apparently with this one, if they miss one shipment on the moon base, people start starving to death.
Right.
That just seemed to be bad planning.
And
Really bad
there's
planning.
the
That also
collapse of
sounds like they
world
need to weed
order.
out the population at that point.
It sounds like they need to send some people into space to cut down on the population, yes.
And find some more farming land and start growing better stuff out there, so that way they can come back to Earth.
Yeah,
Well, you see, this is why they had to send people underground to manufacture disasters.
It seemed to be a little the scale timeline of this seemed to be a bit rushed. All right. So that's what we didn't like. Our favorite scene. Miles.
Favorite scene? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
It would have to be from episode 1 when Osgood sabotages the machine, because he's basically the most obscure. He is the most obscure. He's the most obscure character. He just turns up. He's just he's the man in a suitcase. He turns up, and effectively, he's the most important character of the story because he delays the Ice Warriors long enough for the Doctor and company to get involved.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's threatened by the Ice Warriors to sabotage the machine, and he just walks up to it, sabotages it, gives no fucks, gives the best shit-eating grin, and promptly dies.
Yeah.
Tries to half-night it
awesome.
too.
Had John Hurt not died this week, that would have been our opening bump.
Yes, I had a plan where he would give his little dialogue to the Ice Warrior, and then you would suddenly hear the voice of Zim shouting, "You're lying," and then watch him die.
But unfortunately, of course, we had to do a memorandum because that was a Doctor death. So.
But Zim has a chance to return this season.
Anyway, that was a good scene. Aaron.
I actually kind of like, it's a little bit funny, but I like where the Doctor is trying to break into trying to get into the weather lab. Oh, the climate modification lab. And he's trapped outside with the fungus kind of growing up around him, and I'm just thinking to myself, he's about ready to be killed by bubbles.
Scrubbing bubbles of doom.
That was.
It wasn't that bad, but I think Patrick Troughton, even though it was kind of a little bit silly still, but I think he managed to kind of pass off some that he was actually in danger. He was just like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I'm going to die like this."
That scene was written with an excuse for Patrick Troughton to make goofy faces.
For him to be acting over the top and ham it as hard as he could. Yes.
That was something both him and John Pertwee had in common. Is they were very good at making these goofy, I'm in danger faces. And Pertwee did it less as his role, his time as the Doctor progressed on.
Because he became more the action Doctor.
Yeah. He became more James Bond, Time Lord kind of guy.
Right.
Which in its own way is interesting, but yeah.
I actually want to, sidebarring for just a moment, I would actually love to see us go back to that.
Yes.
I would love to see an action-y Doctor. I would love to see the return of Venusian Aikido. I'd love to see stuff like that come up in a future Doctor, because I think that'd be awesome.
I'm quite good with Venusian Aikido, despite missing 2 arms.
Yeah. I would love to see the return of a very physical Doctor.
Space Knee also is wondering what the next Doctor will be, if it's going to be Scottish, British, etc. He's also excited to see the next regeneration when it comes up.
But yes, that was basically a funny face scene for Troughton, and it was a good one. Tim.
I like the scene where the Doctor's running in the room with the mirrors.
Oh, the long hallway and then the quick moment with the mirrors and so forth, yeah.
Yeah. It reminded me of a Scooby-Doo episode.
The music kind of did too.
It is the right year.
Mhm.
Scooby-Doo came out the same year.
Yeah, I was humming to myself the I know a place where I'm going and a place where I'm going is around the bend. You know.
Okay, Tim, we got it.
Yeah.
We don't need the whole song.
All right, just so
Matt.
if you get it.
Actually, this is there's a couple of them. I'll save my second one for later because I bet you no one's going to take it. But my first one I want to mention is how cool the second Doctor played it when the Ice Warriors caught him at the last episode. But he already knew that he had already thrown their plans into the dumpster.
God damn it, Matt.
Just the second Doctor being the chess master that he is.
Oh,
and this is one episode where he actually couldn't play the dumb. He actually had to play the smart because it's what kept him alive.
That was my favorite scene. God damn it. I don't know if I have another.
Not Space Knee. There's no way he's going to be American.
Yep. I'm going to piggyback on that because I definitely did not have a second choice. But just watching Patrick's face during that scene as he went from, normal to, as he goes through these various stages as the chess master and then, his various reveals. And it's like, and by the way, you're also fucked. That was great.
And each shocked look on that Ice Warrior's face as he found out more and more of his plans were already backfiring.
Yeah, that was a scene. That was a magnificent bastard scene for the Doctor. Truly a wonderful scene. I guess if I have to have a backup, it would be the bit on the rocket.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Just, it was a funny scene. Made me feel good.
There's a lot of good scenes on the rocket with them. The chemistry between the three was fantastic
with them dealing with the fault and all the smoke pouring out.
Oh, I just found the Magnificent Bastard scene. I found an image of it now for the stream. Just that innocent, I foiled you, I'm sorry.
Okay, so that's the best scenes, now the worst scenes. Miles.
Worst scene would have, for me, has to be the chase in episode 3, but only because I kept expecting the monkeys to turn up to play Last Train to Clarksville, and they never did, thus disappointing me.
Curse you monkeys for not being here.
I'm sorry, I'm picturing that now.
It works just as well as the Scooby-Doo stuff. That actually doesn't ruin the scene
for me. That actually puts it higher in the aspect, because now I'm going to see that, and it's going to go through my head.
Do I need to do this fan video for you, Randy? Do I?
Well, because it doesn't happen and only exists in my mind, I will remain forever disappointed.
Aaron, your least favorite scene?
I'm gonna say the scene in the park with the security guard trying not very well to hide behind a tree that really doesn't hide him all that well.
Well, he was trying to run away too, and he stupidly stopped and looked.
Did you notice that throughout this entire serial, anyone who tried to run away from the Ice Warriors would stop, look, and then get shot? If they would just keep running, they would probably have been able to get away.
If they would have at least ran and then maybe dove for cover.
I blame the direction for that.
When I saw this
apparently
scene,
the director was unable to have them to do the whole special effects shooting thing with them from behind. He wanted their faces.
When I saw that scene, I actually thought to myself, "Come in, Ray. He's right here. He's looking at me."
I think he could hear you, Ray.
That's actually what I was thinking when the security guy was trying to talk back to the main base.
With the walkie-talkie.
And all of a sudden you just see the Ice Warrior looking at him. He's looking back at the Ice Warrior, and I'm just like, I think he can hear you, Ray.
Okay, Tim, your least favorite scene?
I really didn't care for the scene where Jamie and the other scientists are trapped in the room, and she tries to pull the switch, but nothing happens.
Oh,
Yeah,
the fact that the Ice Warrior just turns around and lumbers out like a moron.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got somebody standing there pulling a switch. You would think Ice Warrior would just be like, kill. Nope.
Didn't hear anything. Go right back around. Totally didn't see anyone in my peripherals. Yup.
Yeah, that was kind of mine too, but I'll see if I can come up with something else.
I'm sorry.
Matt.
Worst scene. There are some cheeseburgers in this one. Holy cow.
But are they cheeseburgers in paradise?
Now I'm hungry for cheeseburgers, damn it.
You know what? This was a very watchable episode, so all considering. Actually, the one thing that did get me is when we're seeing this guy trying to pull together his talking device, which ended up interrupting the signal for the doctor and the others on the rocket. You're seeing him throw the switch, and it becomes very obvious that the switch is just dangling there, attached to nothing. Because every time he touches it, it literally wobbles back and forth on, like, fencing. It's like, if that is actually attached only directly to the fencing, you'd get shocked by that thing. By now. Some of the props, like that one in particular, just didn't quite work right. I blame the 60s mostly, but it's a nitpick.
Alright. Bill?
Mine was clearly an example of the writer having a great effect in mind and the budget department being like, yeah, fuck that. But I forget which episode's cliffhanger it was. So, it comes through, they're like, oh my god, what is it? It's alive. It's a white balloon. Well, we can't change the cliffhanger now, so we just need to react to this white balloon.
Yeah, I think they did the best they could, but yeah, that really wasn't the greatest effect. So my least favorite scene, now that I've thought up another one, is the scene with the museum curator who's talking to the doctor and going, yes, it'd be great if we went back to the days of rockets. I love me some rocket. To, we need to use your rocket. Oh no, that's suicide.
You bring up a good point.
180s.
The thing is, there are so many people like that. I want this idea to happen. Wait, I'm responsible for people's safety? No. I want to just sit on my couch and complain.
Yeah, I know, but at the same time, it just, I don't know. The amount of emphatic no that he had just really, really what kind of turned me off to that scene. And like I said, that was a backup scene, so.
If he would have just stuck to his gusto of feeling like he was being betrayed, that'd be one thing, but yeah.
If he had maintained the time being basically worrisome and uncertain without all the no when he hears about how desperate it is, I would have been okay. But the fact that he kept emphatically saying how he's sending them to their deaths, it's suicide, the rocket's not ready.
Can I mention my extra favorite scene really quick?
No, because we're out of time. We literally have 15 minutes left. We need to go to final thoughts.
Okay, well, we'll see how much time we got at the end then.
All right, so Miles, your final thoughts.
Despite this kind of, the Ice Warriors are more of the generic monster, and many plot similarities with this and the original Ice Warriors, which I didn't realize until watching both of them in relatively quick succession.
That's why we do this kind of thing, by the way.
This is the more fun and faster paced with less talk and story. I found it a lot of fun. Always found it a lot of fun.
All right. Aaron, I believe you're next.
I also enjoyed this one a lot more than the previous serial. A lot more action, a lot more intense drama, and although there were some boneheaded ideas going on, I still quite enjoyed this.
All right. Tim?
I enjoyed this intensely. I thought it was a good development of the Ice Warrior characters, building on what was in their first serial, as well as a lot of fun with the Doctor and Jamie and Zoe. as well as, like I said, a good grounding in science fact. So yeah, those are my 2 cents.
All right, Matt.
Much more detail brought into the Ice Warriors to make them their own thing. A lot more better written plot than the previous one, which helped to make everything else feel like it was alright and passable, despite some silly extremes here and there. Overall, yeah, much more enjoyable second outing for the Ice Warriors, and I can see why they wanted to keep it going. Sadly, color was not their friend.
Okay, Bill.
I actually think that I like the previous story a little better, partially because the first 2 parts of this felt a little padded. If it was a 4-parter, I mean, that's a what if, so I'd really have to see it to reevaluate, then that might have swayed my opinion a little better. Ultimately, I do think I prefer the Ice Warriors over this, but I don't really dislike this either.
Well, I liked this one better than the Ice Warriors, like everybody on here except Bill. Mostly because the Ice Warriors itself had some, its whole premise was built on flawed scientific premises that just ate at me throughout the entire serial. And this one was more grounded in fact. It's like they went back to Brian and said, check your facts before doing this. And he did. And it made more sense. So I like that part, and I think the pacing of this one is just better. All in all, it comes out to be a better showing. There are some, OG's points, but they're mostly because of the datedness of the episode, not because of bad writing or anything. And that's what I have to say. So now we move on to ratings.
4 expanding seed pods out of 5.
4?
4.
Yep.
You gave the last one a 5. Aaron.
Do you know why I gave the last one
4?
4? I'm going to go ahead and give this a 4.5.
0.5. Okay. Matt.
Oh.
Wait. No, Tim, sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I believe I gave last one a 5, and
Correct.
I don't think this was any worse, so I'm going to give this a 5 as well.
Okay.
Actually, can you change mine to a 5, please?
Okay. All right. And Matt. Now you're Matt.
You know what? I'd rate this one right up there with the Invasion. This is a 5.
Okay. Bill.
I'm sure I'm the low ball today, but I think I'm giving this a 3.5.
Yeah. This is the reason. You are the reason this season why we can't have nice things.
Everybody needs a pooper, that's why they invited you.
Yeah. I am going to give this a 4.5. I felt it was better than the last one, and most of the flaws, like I said, were mostly due to the datedness of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Not anything in particular, and that will average us out to a 4.6, meaning that Aaron and I were actually closest to the mark.
The chat is angry with you, all 2 of them.
Is angry with who, me?
Yes.
All right, and I'm going to sort this out. Give it a moment. Fortunately, I did most of my homework ahead of time. And at a 4.6, that puts the Seeds of Death at number 17.
Whew.
Out of 188 Doctor Who stories reviewed at this point. It is on the same vein as The Return of Dr. Mysterio, our current episode, Bells of St. John, The Magician's Apprentice, which is familiar, The Invasion of Time. It is put slightly better than the Zygon Invasion, Zygon Inversion, Enlightenment, New Earth, Big Finish Spare Parts, The Invasion, ironically enough, The Rebos Operation, and is not quite as good as Dalek, Genesis of the Daleks, Time Heist, The Empty Child, Dr. Dances, Armageddon Factor, and Dark Water, Death in Heaven. So there we go. Number 17 on our list. Seeds of Death. All right, we have 10 minutes. So, Matt, you said you had a scene since we got that over with fairly quickly.
Yeah, we actually got that done fairly quickly. So my one little extra scene was the scene where the doctor's told that they never got the information about starting up the rain, and immediately goes off to try and save Joey and Zoe and Jamie. And so when he takes off, immediately the first thought in my head was, "Duh," and then the preceding running only added in the Batman theme even harder. The only thing was missing was something for him to punch and kick to make the pow sounds.
Yeah, he wouldn't get that until
That would have been Jamie's job.
generation.
Yeah, that wouldn't be until the next generation. Or you could also cut in the Jamie scenes where he's fighting with the Ice Warrior inside the building.
That would make Jamie.
I kind of want to see a cut of that now. Jamie punching on, bang, pow, zap.
You know, Fraser Hines would be for that.
Yes, he would. But he mainly would have wanted to do it with Victoria watching.
Yes, he would have.
Yeah, he didn't have that same level of interest that in Zoe as he had in Victoria.
Yeah.
When she left, Jamie was sad.
You sad boy.
Okay.
Yeah, Zoe was more of a sister figure to him. Anyways, yep, that's it for tonight. See you all next week.
Actually, do you want to take us
Oh,
out,
that's
Bill?
right, Bill.
Yep. All right. Well, if you enjoyed listening to us, please consider liking the video to show us that, and subscribe, of course, on Twitch and YouTube, so you can keep hearing our lovely voices when we come out with new videos. You can also like us at facebook.com/unearthlypodcast and twitter.com/unearthlypod. And if you want to support us, you can head on over to patreon.com/unearthlypodcast, and we'll thank you for that.
So next week, we move on to the Ice Warriors, to another green race of alien invaders. And on behalf of the rest of us on an Unearthly Podcast, I would like to apologize in advance for the next few weeks. Yep, we're going back to Series 1, and we're going to cover the Slovene in Aliens of London World War III, by Russell T. Davies, and starring Christopher Eccleston as the Doctor, Billy Piper as Rose Tyler. We are going from number 16 to probably a basement dweller.
Sorry, everybody.
Ta-ta.
I am not looking forward to this.
Yep, see you all next week.